This stream is cleared for takeoff. Hello, welcome to our SDK Developer live stream. My name is Jayne. I am the Senior Community Manager for Microsoft Flight Simulator. We've got some new faces up on screen here. Really excited to introduce everybody in a moment, but I just wanted to emphasize what this stream is and why we're all here. So I'm, first of all, glad you can make it. This stream is geared towards third-party developers, whether you're a marketplace partner, an external developer, pay or freeware developer. If you use the SDK in some way, basically, then this stream is probably for you. So thank you for tuning in. What the stream is not for, it's not a general Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 or 2024 dev stream that we usually have with Jorg and Seb and Marcial. So if you have just generic questions about the sim, we're not going to be answering those today. We're going to focus solely on the SDK and that experience. All right, so in front of us today on our left, we have Jorg Neumann, head of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Jorg, thanks for joining. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hi, awesome developers. Good to see you.
And on the right, we have three members of the SDK team. We have, if you want to maybe raise your hand when I say your name, we have Hugo, SDK producer. We have Eric, lead SDK developer.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sylvain, associate lead tech QA for the SDK
Hello,
team. Thank you so much for joining. I'm sure this might be quite a new experience to be doing a live stream, but we're appreciative that you're taking some time to chat with all of our developers today and talk about the SDK. So they put together an amazing presentation that's going to cover several topics. As our regular dev streams, there are going to be Q&A sections. We put out a form and we have some questions that we're going to be answering. We'll also do a few live questions here and there as time allows. So hopefully we'll get to a lot of your questions today. But I think we should just go ahead and get started. Lots to talk about. So Jorg, I'm going to start with you to kick this thing off.
Hi, y'all. Thank you for joining. And if you just want to go through the next slides, Jayne, keep going. That's in 2024, of course. So thank you. Thank you for all your creativity, for your support, for your patience. I would say, I said that many times, like one of the greatest joys we've had in the last 4 years was actually all the stuff that you guys made. And despite there wasn't really an SDK back in 2020 when we first started, I think what you guys created is just amazing. And the team here that's sitting right there is really dedicated to making sure that you can create even more great things for 2024. That's what this presentation is all about. And then I couldn't resist to put this together because I liked it so much. So almost 5,000 add-ons have been made, 700, no, there was 100, then 700, then the next year was 1,500. Keep going, Jayne. Wow. 3,000 and then 5,000 is an amazing accomplishment that you guys did as a community of creators. And I just wanted to say thank you before we get started. And with that, let's get started.
Awesome. Here is our agenda for today. We'll do an introduction, general overview. We'll talk about aircraft, airports and sceneries, and then other SDK and dev mode improvements. And then last but not least, we'll talk about our dev alpha.
Yeah, hello everyone. We can already start answering questions. And no, I'm not Ninja. I wish I was, but no, I saw that in the chat. Yeah. I'm just Hugo from the SDK. Nice to meet you. It's my first Q&A live, so please be nice with me. We wanted to take a second to remind everyone what was the dev mode and SDK. So it's professional tools available to everyone within the game in order to create whatever you have in mind for your own personal use or for outside distribution. And since it's been a long time since we have done a live SDK Q&A with you, just look back in the mirror because compared to where we were with the release of Flight Sim 2020, a lot has been achieved by the SDK team, and we want to confirm that the SDK 2024 will be accessible at launch. Everything was not available in 2020 at launch, but we've made the effort to provide you with everything at launch. The team inside Asobo grew. In general, you can see a picture of all of us working on Flight Sim, and a portion of that is working on the SDK. We have now a dedicated dev support platform that's super efficient, that's super cool. We'll talk more about this later. Our documentation, we saw examples of past documentation and documentation now, and the gap is huge. The documentation is massive. Hopefully, you'll be able to navigate through it and find your information, but it's been a lot of work. And also, the thing why we're here today is because we improved the dev mode for Sunrise for Flight Sim 2024. We created a lot of tools, a lot of options, and we're gonna go and present a part of it today. Hopefully you like it.
Perfect. We're gonna start with our general overview.
Yeah, so that's for me. So I'm Eric, a lead SDK developer. We've met in the past. Happy to see you all again on Twitch or YouTube on the chat. So first slide is probably one of the most important things to add-on developers and to players. So backwards compatibility. So we promised a while ago that nearly every package from Flight Sim 2020 would work out of the box. We can confirm that the marketplace packages coming from Flight Sim 2020 will work out of the box. We are working hard ensuring this. So what will happen is that Flight Sim 2024 will detect that these packages come from the previous version, and it will handle them in a special way because some rules may differ between the two versions. So of course, if the sim is loading a 2020 package, it will apply the 2020 rules, and everything should work correctly. We have a few exceptions though. Biomes, the packages that were changing biomes won't work because we have a brand new biomes and geomes system. So more on that later. Everything that changed our UI in menus, maybe in game panels, some of them will still work. You'll have to check. But everything that is related to main menus will probably not work. And we also have unusual add-ons in the MISC section on the marketplace. We fear that some of them may have issues. So how will we deal with that? Basically, we've mentioned already, and we'll talk about it again later, there's a dev alpha build coming, and you will be able to use it to detect potential issues with your add-ons. So basically, your add-ons will be available in Flight Sim 2024. You can check them, and you can report issues. We'll explain how. You will be able to tell us if you find something that we didn't see. One important thing is that before your 2020 add-on really appears on the 2024 marketplace, you'll have to sign off. So basically, you will just say, hey, I've tested my content. It works fine on the new version. I'm happy for it to come onto the 2024 marketplace. Another important thing, because I've seen that asked, I think it was on dev support, not 100% sure, I read too many forums, but there won't be any forward compatibility, which means a Flight Sim 2024 package will not work on Flight Sim 2020. That's an important thing to keep in mind. We only offer backward compatibility. So in this slide that you see here, you can see a screenshot that you may have seen from people who were attending our GPE earlier a few weeks ago. So this is what we used to call the content manager that has been renamed in my library. And you can see on the screen that basically it will show all of your content, be it 2024 or 2020. So even if a developer hasn't certified that his add-on was working on 2024, players who bought it will see this add-on in their My Library screen. So they can test it themselves. But of course, it's better if developers can ensure that everything is okay before the players do it by themselves. So next slide, please, Jayne. So now that we've talked about backwards compatibility, other questions are probably related to how do I migrate my content from 2020 to 2024? Another very important point for you. There's one thing we'd like to stress is that if you use the exact same assets in 2020 and 2024 and use the built-in package builder to create your package, this will produce different results in game. That's simply because, as I explained before, we have different rules that apply in 2024 compared to 2020. Again, I'll come back to them later on. So it's very important to understand that when you migrate to a 2024 project and package, you will probably have to rework some of your assets. Why do we do that? Why do we put some more constraints? It's just that we want to improve quality, and we want to preserve performance. There are mandatory changes such as lighting. We are now using photometric calculation in the rendering engine. And it means that when you specify a light intensity, it's not just a number without dimensions, without dimension as it used to be. It's now expressed in candela per square meters. And so you'll have to just tweak your light intensities in your packages. It shouldn't be a big deal. There are other things that are highly encouraged and that may consume more time on your side, such as switching your aircraft or any of your sim objects to a new system that we call modular sim object, and that I'll explain later. Another key thing is that you will have to use the export for marketplace option in the dev mode before submitting a package to the Microsoft ingestion pipeline. If you don't do that, your submission will be rejected straight away. The reason we ask for that is that this option now exports uncompressed textures. The reason being that those textures will be reprocessed during ingestion for easier streaming. Of course, you will still have an export for community option. In that case, the textures will be compressed, and you can just send your latest creation to your friends around, and they can install it in the community folder. One key thing that has already been mentioned in past Q&As is that Flight Sim 2024 uses what we call a thin client, which means that contrary to Flight Sim 2020, where all the content, or nearly all the content, was distributed with the sim, we are now streaming most of the content. So what does it mean? You probably understand it. Basically, you won't have to wait for very long installations when you first start the sim. And also, when we provide updates, they'll be instantly downloaded on your end. So basically, you only download what you really need or use. There's no point downloading 80,000 airports if you always fly between, well, if you always use 10 of them. You don't need to download 80 aircraft if you only fly 2 or 3 of them. So that's really to make things lighter on your disk and on your internet connection. There's one drawback, though. Basically, what you could do in 2020 was, hey, I've got 150 packages provided by Asobo. How did they do this? How did they do that? You could have a look. You could browse them freely, just looking on your hard drive. Obviously, if we don't stream everything, if we don't install everything on your hard drive, well, you won't have the ability to browse those packages. And we know this was really useful in Flight Sim 2020, be it because of a lack of documentation, which we've improved, or a lack of samples, which we've improved again. But yet maybe there are things that will be missing for you. So just wanted to reassure you, I can't explain you what the solution is right now, because we have solutions for this, and one of them will be rolled out with the Dev Alpha. Actually, we have 2 solutions. We haven't chosen which one we'll deploy, but you'll have a solution to this, so you won't be left out in the blue without any access to the packages we've developed. Another very important topic that came out of dev support. I don't know if there are dev support people on the chat, but I'd like to see what their reaction is. Basically, a lot of developers were complaining that they had to provide support to their customers because another add-on had been overriding a key file provided by the sim. And so we have this VFS overriding system, which we advertised with Flight Sim 2020. And actually, we never thought that people would override core files, or we never thought about it. And some people did, and truly this created issues. Key files were overridden, which could cause problems to other developers. So we've decided that in Flight Sim 2024, we will forbid the overriding of some key files. The list is still being built. We'll publish it in the SDK documentation, should be in the documentation that you'll receive with Dev Alpha. But I can already state, because it's been discussed in dev support, that HTML UI and model behavior devs will probably be locked away. Still under discussion, but that's very possible. You can start, I mean, if you have questions about it and you think this already will limit what you're trying to do, you can report on dev support, and we'll try to find ways for you to achieve what you want. So the idea is not to block you in any way. We don't want to block your creativity. As Jorg said, it's a strength of the platform, that what you've done in the past years is fantastic. We want to preserve that, but we just want to make it in such a way that there's not 1 or 2 or 10 developers blocking the others or creating them more support than they really need. Another new thing, sorry, don't worry, it's not bad news. So we're having a new LOD system in Flight Sim 2024. So basically, this new LOD selection system applies to all three objects, be it an aircraft, an airport, or basically airport objects rather than just the full airport, and sceneries as well. So again, what we're trying to do is preserve quality and performance, and even improve quality in certain situations, as you'll see with modular sim objects. So this is actually a good idea, even if I know some people don't really like it. But the only thing is that what this means is that it requires careful design of your model LODs. So what we're trying to do is to preserve vertex density on screen so that you don't have a tiny object trying to use millions of vertices. So you may be familiar, well, all of you who are creating objects for the sim know that there is an XML file where you specify your GLTF files and you say, okay, I want this file to be displayed when my object reaches this size on the screen, the size being a percentage of your vertical screen size. And now we're adding another metric in that calculation, which is there's a maximum vertex count that also dictates the mean size. So even if you say, yeah, I want this million vertices model to appear as soon as it's 1% size on the screen, well, our curve will say, no, 1%, that won't work. It will increase it to whatever. I don't have the figure in mind, but we'll have it on the next slide anyway. Just to reassure you, the whole process is explained in the documentation, and the applied limits are explained as well. So it will be easy even if time consuming to create those LODs. So let's have a look at the next slide because it will show the table basically. So, well, it's very small on the screen we have, but anyway, so you see some vertex count in the first column. So basically what it says is that let's say your simulation is set on the high graphics settings. So if you have 250,000 vertices, the model won't be used until the object occupies the whole screen size. In the chat, maybe people will start complaining, but don't worry, we have explanations. It doesn't mean that your whole aircraft is limited to 250,000 vertices. I'll explain. So an object that has 2 million vertices won't appear until it occupies 283% of the vertical screen size. These are the limits we set. Don't be afraid right now. We'll explain just in a few minutes why this is not a problem anymore. Let's switch to the next slide. Okay, so what we really wanted to tell you is that creating LODs can be time consuming. I've talked to the artists in Asobo today. Talking to the scenery artists, the lead told me that for a scenery vehicle that you just put on a car park or on a road just to decorate your scenery, it takes them about half a day to create all the LODs, nothing more. The next one was more surprising, talking to our aircraft artists. They told me that for them, it may take between 1 to 3 months to create all the LODs for their aircraft, depending on the complexity. So it's ranging from a light aircraft to a complex airliner. I think there are other figures coming from other people, Jorg.
Yeah, so I mean, just to let you know, like I've been the guy who works with all the first parties, right? So was obviously making the tools. I'm working with companies like Gaia. So I just talked to the Gaia guys just yesterday and this morning. How long does it take them? On the airport side, they think for the base conversion, so new ground materials, new ground markings, ground archetypes, all that stuff, it's 3 to 10 working days. But for the LODs, maybe 2 days for a big terminal building, and then just a few hours for a small building. And then I asked Coronado, how long does it take them to create the LODs? And I mean, Coronado aircraft are not, with the exception of the Saab, which is obviously big, but they said 2 days for the LODs per aircraft. So when Eric talked to Benjamin, I think they were talking about airliners that can take longer. They're much more complex.
Yeah. So another important thing when you're creating your LODs, it's obvious, but I like to stress it. When you create a new LOD, so it should be lighter than the previous one. So, and when we say lighter, it's not just less vertices, it's less triangles, less materials as well. Just for information, the last LOD in our objects, we usually try to make it use only vertex colors and no textures at all. And we try to keep it around 200 triangles. Obviously, that's when the object can be accommodated with only 200 triangles. If it's a huge building, it must be tricky. But that's what the figures I got from our artists internally. So the good news is that creating LODs can seem a bit daunting, a huge task, but actually there are tools out there that can help you creating them. So there are built-in simplifiers in 3D Studio Max and Blender that are available for you to use. I think some of them are called polycrunchers, I heard, but I'm not very familiar with them. I used to call them mesh simplifiers in the past. We have a solution integrated in our pipeline, which is Simplygon. So Simplygon can be used to automatically generate LODs for you. The thing is that it requires a license. So if you don't want to buy a license from them, there are open source solutions that are available. I've found a lot on GitHub. I haven't reviewed them, so I can't tell you about their quality or anything, but from what I've heard, some of them seem to be quite reliable and quite good and quite fast at doing things. The only thing is that, of course, if you use them, they're not integrated in our pipeline. So you'll have to create your object in 3ds, then see if those open source solutions can integrate in 3D Studio or Blender, or you'll have to create the LODs as an external step between the modeling software and the flight simulator. But there are things there to help you. So just to give you an idea of what it brings to have LODs like that, if you look at these airport screenshots, well, there's one picture where we have 28 million triangles, and there's another one where we have 9 million triangles. Granted, on a stream with a small image, it may not be easy to see the differences, but to be honest, even when you have the full screen resolution pictures, I mean, it's really tricky to see where those 90 million triangles went. So, and of course, what it means is that, well, we have 19 million triangles less to handle in the engine, better for performance, and the quality is preserved according to us. So we'll see that.
All right.
So that's where, oh, yes. It's for,
Yeah,
it's for you. I'll let you ask,
questions.
Jayne.
I'm seeing lots of good questions in chat. I'm going to start with one of our predetermined questions here, though. Is there any improvement or changes to the blending where multiple animations are applied to a single object or armature?
Do you want to reply? Yes. Okay, so I've asked our tech arts about it. No, not in the, if you're talking aircraft, sim objects, right now there's no improvement or changes to the blending. We use a new system for facial animations, but which is not open to everyone right now, which uses additive blending. But yeah, for now, it's not exposed in the SDK. And that's the only part of the animation process that really has something brand new.
Okay. Next question. Per object LODs were visible in the videos from the global preview event, as opposed to the entire model changing its LOD. Can you talk about what developers should expect from this system?
So I guess this is more related to, well, it's related to the LOD part I've just talked about, and it's also related to the modular sim objects part that we'll talk about a bit later. But basically, that's where the key thing is. So we put more constraints on your LODs. We want them to be, well, yeah, less constrained. But when you create an object, actually a sim object now, it can be made of many simpler objects that actually have their own LODs. So that's where the system becomes interesting. It's in the modularity. So when we put the constraint, it's not a constraint we put on your sim object, it's a constraint we put on each part of your sim object. So you can have a very detailed engine, and which we will only see with its full detail when we're close to it. And then maybe the rivets on the tail behind won't be displayed because it's far from the camera. And that's how everything works. So that's the idea between those, what the person called per object LODs.
Great, thank you. Are third-party sceneries going to work with Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, or do the developers need to compile the sceneries with the new SDK?
It's backwards compatibility, I think.
Yeah, I think, well, existing Flight Sim 2020 third-party sceneries will work in Flight Sim 2024.
I think I will ask a good question earlier live, which was, will the LODs from the 2020 packages work in 2024?
Yes, that's precisely why I said in the backwards compatibility slide that Flight Sim 2024 will detect that you're running a 2020 package. So this object will have the same 2020 LOD limits applied to itself. So we are not going to apply the 2024 limits to the 2020 aircraft or objects, because obviously that would break backwards compatibility.
I mean, maybe just to say that the upshot is, if you don't want to use the new features of Flight Sim 2024, your stuff should work backwards compatible. If you want to use the new features, there's some LOD work and other work, of course, to use the new feature. That's basically
the only small trick is the other thing I explained before, is that if you're trying to do that, you must build your packages in Flight Sim 2020. As soon as you build with 2024, it's a 2024 package and 2024 rules apply.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, a few live questions. Can you guys ensure we're able to install MSFS 2020 SDK alongside with 2024 SDK and be able to support both platforms?
So yeah, I think it's a question that we answer later, but the short answer is yes, you can have both SDKs installed at the same time. Yeah.
Okay. Clarification questions. Are those files that are locked away for all add-ons in community or marketplace purchases only?
No, for everything, even community. Well, and perhaps I should say community first, because at least on the marketplace we could have control. We could check which package is doing what, and on community we have no control. And so we don't want marketplace partners, or any developer for that matter, to be bothered by a package that is installed either through the marketplace or in the community. So this will be locked for everyone.
Okay. All right. A lot of the questions I'm seeing we do answer.
Well, no. So there are a couple of questions that I thought.
Sure.
So somebody said, "Hey, vertex color for the last LOD doesn't work for stuff like airliners with liveries on it." I think I'm getting that. It's up in the stream, but I saw it. Eric, do you have any reaction?
Not really, because basically it's I heard about it talking to our artists, so I have to ask Ben, or no, it was Fred actually. I need to talk to Fred, and so he tells me if there's an issue on that.
Okay.
Again, what I was saying is what we do internally, and it's true that when I discussed this very specific fact, it was with our scenery artist, not our aircraft artist. So maybe it only applies to sceneries, and of course, because of liveries, there may be an issue with sim objects. That's very possible.
Okay.
But we'll run into this too, because we're obviously painting a bunch of liveries on new air traffic. So,
yeah.
Well, we'll get back to you on this.
Yeah. All right. So next, we're going to talk about aircraft.
And that's where I take the torch.
Olympics are over, man.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm Sylvain. I think most of you know me as Flying Raccoon on the Dev Support platform. I see some familiar name tags in the chat, so hello to everyone. I'm very happy that I'm the one introducing some of the techniques we are bringing with Flight Sim 2024, because that's a lot of work from the whole team, and it's a privilege. So I think the first very important thing that we want to talk about for aircraft development is the modular sim objects. So both Asobo and third-party developers have made aircraft that can have sometimes multiple variations. And this was an issue on Flight Sim 2020, because most of the time we would end up having lots of sim objects, and we would copy asset from sim objects to sim objects, and it would be very heavy package with a lot of assets being duplicated. So that's what this new feature is trying to solve. So basically, it's a sim object that has a hierarchy system. So you can still create variations, but they're now called presets. And all those presets are sharing a common set of properties. So properties can be 3D modeled, it can be configuration file, it can be sounds. And then you can create parts that we call sim attachments. And essentially, you will configure your preset to be the combination of the common and of multiple available sim attachments. So that's how it works. As we mentioned before, every part in that hierarchy has its own LODs, and the LODs are processed individually. So the very interesting behavior for this is, for example, if you have a very big twin jet airliner and the camera is on the left side of the airliner, you want close to the engine, you want to display the engine with a lot of details and have it look as nice as possible. What is now possible is that when the camera is close to an engine nacelle, you will have a very highly detailed model, while the engine that is on the other side of the aircraft can either be occluded or have a very low level of detail. So it offers a lot more adjustments in the geometry that is displayed on screen. And so there's no performance cost because it's a trade-off. And it allows us to have a predictable and stable performance. So let's illustrate this new hierarchy with an example. So let's imagine you want to create an aircraft that has multiple landing gear configurations like wheels and skis. And you also want it to have both two cabin configurations, for example, like a configuration with passengers and a configuration for cargo transportation. What you're going to do is that your aircraft, there are a lot of properties and things that are common to all variations. So all of these will be in the common node that you can see at the top of the graph. So for example, in here, you will have the engine configuration because possibly it's the same across all variations. Then you will create each individual part. So the wheels, the skis, the cabin with passengers and the cabin with cargoes. And finally, you will be able to create your 4 variations, and each variation will be a combination of those attachments. And so, of course, what that means is that all assets are shared. And so you end up with a very lightweight package, which is very practical for streaming and all other good reasons. One very nice feature, side effect of that new hierarchy is that, of course, you can share attachments across your aircraft variations, but you can also share it across your aircraft. You can basically create a library of sim attachments, and this can be distributed as a package. So that means, for example, Flight Sim 2024 will come with its own library of sim attachments. It's hard to see on the image, but there are a lot of mechanical instruments that are commonly used. All the avionics also that are used by a lot of aircraft, and it also makes this way easier to integrate avionics into your own aircraft, because basically you will just have to create a preset. You will create a new attachment node, reference, and say, I want this specific avionics, give it a position, and it will be displayed in your aircraft. So we think it will simplify. It opens a lot of doors in increasing the complexity of your aircraft, while at the same time keeping it lightweight. Next big feature, the navigation graphs. So the concept is simple. You can place nodes in the environment, whether it's the airport environment or the aircraft environment. These nodes will have properties or tags, and then you can create links that we call edges between all of those nodes. This concept is used across a lot of features in the sim. For example, it's used to define the position of the pilot, of all the passengers. It's used to make the passengers navigate into the airport, for example, through the jetways. And I will give an example later about the skydive missions. One last detail is that to make it easier to use, we also have subgraphs, which means you can create a small graph that you will instantiate multiple times. So for example, an airliner cabin where there are hundreds of passengers, you can create a row seat row and instantiate multiple times to have all your passengers. So here's a very quick example of how it works. So that's the caravan in a skydive configuration. And what you basically see is the yellow nodes at the outside the aircraft are all the positions where the skydivers will spawn. They will be a specific position for the jump master, and all these skydivers will follow the edges all the way to the door to board the aircraft, and they will follow a path all the way to their individual seat. And this particular graph is used in the skydiving mission. I think it's in the cutscene where you will see people boarding the skydiving aircraft. One also very important topic. I'm not Sebastian, so I will not.
Aren't you?
I will not dive too deep into this. I think it will be way better than me to explain all of the additions in Flight Sim 2024. But there was one particular thing I wanted to mention. It's the possibility now to define the geometry of the aircraft with a lot more flexibility. So we have added a lot of new sections in the flight model CFG file that will let you create basically multiple surfaces, so like fuselage, wings, horizontal tail, vertical tails, and also flight control surfaces. You can define multiple of those every time. So it gives a way more accuracy. So we can see on the DA62 picture, we've used actually 3 fuselage objects to define the geometry. And the way it's configured lets you really tweak so that it matches the 3D, the actual 3D geometry. And also each part has its own physical properties, so it contributes to the way the flight model behaves. So yeah, it gives a lot more accuracy. And also the other very important thing is that it offers more flexibility. All the things that were previously not possible in Flight Sim 2020, like twin fuselage aircraft or biplanes with actually having 2 wings, this becomes possible with Flight Sim 2024. Now let's move to the core systems. Our core systems engineers have added and made a lot of work on the systems we had already on Flight Sim 2020. So some systems have been improved, like the electrical system. We've added a lot of new components like breakers, diodes, relays, and transformers. And there was one particular topic, I don't know if the people are in the chat, but there was something that was requested a long time ago on the support, which was the simulation of internal resistance for batteries. Well, that new system covers this feature. So I think we'll be waiting for your feedback. It will be interesting to see if it answers all your needs. We've also introduced new systems like the pneumatics and hydraulics and liquid dropping systems. It's based on the same model as we did previously with the fuel and electrical systems. You will define components which have properties, and you can create links between those components. You'll have also very interesting debug views to understand how the system is behaving live. So I think it will be very useful. And the last one I wanted to mention is that we have a dedicated brake system. So now, typically, for example, we simulate how the temperature of the brakes are affecting the braking performance. So it can have a role on the stopping distance. Also, brakes that are overheating will wear out faster. And so I think this kind of system is really useful. And the diagram you see on the right is the pneumatic system of the 737. So I'm sure a lot of you will replay this presentation and have a very detailed look if it looks good to you. But yeah, that's the kind of things we can do now. Let's move to another big topic. The carrier compatibility. So you've also seen it either after the GP, but Flight Sim 2024 introduces a new carrier mode, which offers many aviation activities. This system, of course, it needs to know information about your aircraft in order to select which aircraft can participate to which missions. So the new aircraft configuration, there are a lot of new criteria that were introduced. that you can configure, and basically there's a carrier compatibility tab in the SimObject editor, which is the new aircraft editor, and it will let you know your current aircraft. Is it compatible with aerial advertising? Is it compatible with cargo transportation? It helps you figure out what's needed on your side to be compatible with the carrier system. I have an example in mind. For example, for the aerial advertising mission, there's a specific criterion on the power weight ratio. If your aircraft is not powerful enough, it will not be compatible with this kind of mission. And so, of course, the carrier compatibility is available for all marketplace partners that are creating Flight Sim 2024 aircrafts. Yes.
Okay.
Before we go to the questions, so the team, the external team that has worked the longest with the aircraft system is Carnado. They've been working on it since February, and I asked them to give us some numbers. So I'll just read this. For the 3D, they think it's almost the same amount of work to do 3D, maybe 20% more, because you have to basically reduce in some areas and increase in others. 2 days, as I said earlier, for the LED creation. Materials, they said, take some experimentation, but they think for roughly 1 week. Sounds, I think, I'm not sure what this is in today's presentation. They said about 1 week to do stuff with WISE projects. Instruments, the default ones, the support is super quick. If you have your own, it might take a few days. The new systems that Sylvain just talked through, 3 to 4 days for each new system, like electrical and fuel. Walk around is a new feature that I don't think we talk about today, 2 days. And then passengers and seatbelts about a week. So they estimate, and this was just to help you guys gauge your own development, right? They basically said, depending on the aircraft size, of course, 1.5 to 2 person month to get a plane ready for 2024. Hopefully that's useful.
Awesome. Thank you, Jorg. All right. We gathered some questions from the chat, and we have these here. So we'll start with these questions. Will the new physics and options, with the new physics and options, will flight models on existing aircraft need to be redone to be compatible with 2024?
And the answer is no. It's a matter of backwards compatibility. We really want the new features to be optional, but if you don't change anything to your flight model configuration, it should behave just as it did before.
Yeah.
And
just to clarify, I mentioned before that using the same assets and building them in 2020, 2024 may not yield the same results. Well, flight model is not one of them. Flight model can be reused as is between 2020 and 2024, or rather from 20 to 2024.
Because we support legacy flight model, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you can either do the new one or use the existing.
Yeah. Okay, got it. Can we expect performance improvements to the light system in 2024?
The question was mentioning explicitly the FX files that are used to create lights for the aircraft. So technology-wise, the rendering technique we use to render lights is really state-of-the-art. So it's really, really good at rendering a lot of lights. So there's not much performance improvement to do on that side. However, we were able to reach quite an impressive amount of lights. I think for the 737 cabin, we are around 200 lights that are used. Of course, it's always a trade-off between art quality and performance. So sometimes you will have to make choice and sacrifice quality for performance. But we think this is achievable, and the 737 I think will be a good example to have a look at.
Okay. One of the chat questions: can sim objects switch between 2 flight models depending on configuration? For example, a helicopter between standard vertical stabilizer and fast fin vertical stabilizer.
So switching, basically you could have, I'm not sure what that means. If it means in flight, switching flight models, I don't think we support that.
No.
So you could have a sim object having different flight models through the preset system we mentioned before. So 2 different variations where only the flight model changes. But if you're asking if you can completely switch flight model while you're flying with your aircraft, that's not supported.
Okay. Will we still need to manually save menu icons and aircraft selection images to each size and shape as opposed to having them auto-scale and crop?
I think this is for the project edition.
Yeah, I think it's rather funny. It's true that we haven't got any slide on that here. Right now in Flight Sim 2024, the only picture or thumbnail you need is actually that of the old content manager, now renamed into My Library. Everything that is related to marketplace, where you used to have lots of things to add, thumbnails and everything, it will now be handled on the ingestion platform where you submit your packages. So you'll submit your packages and you'll be able to change the publishing information, amongst which the images. The reason we did that, by the way, is that we realized that in 2020, if you only wanted to change one image on the marketplace for your product, you had to resubmit the whole package, which was a bit strange, really. So we've separated those pipelines now, and now you submit the package, and in the platform that you'll have to handle all your submissions, you'll be able to decide which images you want to set in the marketplace. Now, I know this doesn't answer the question, but the reason is that I don't know what format of thumbnails we need in the new marketplace. Maybe
at some point we'll have a presentation talking about ingestion and marketplace, but that's not today.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have a marketplace meeting, I think, scheduled in 2 weeks or something. We'll talk about this in more detail.
Awesome.
Okay.
All right. Will the wear and tear feature allow to affect the handling of the aircraft?
Yes. So it will not be very visual because, of course, I think you have the same constraints that we do, and aircraft manufacturers don't really want their aircraft to be mistreated. But the systems we've introduced, and wear and tear and failure system, will have an influence on the aircraft handling. So the example, I mentioned an example previously where if your brakes are worn out, the stopping distance will be way longer. Also, your flight control surfaces, if they're in bad condition, they can either lock or become completely free. I think we also have features on the engine behavior. It can go all the way to a full engine stop if it's in bad condition. So definitely yes.
Can we add that question from Raoul, because it's directly related to wear and tear? Do you see it?
Yeah.
Jayne?
I have my own wear and tear system already. It has its own LVARs, etc. Can I hawk up to the new 2024 wear and tear by using my own VARs? So I integrate my already developed modules already.
I don't think you'll be able to inject your own VARs in our system. And I don't know if we expose our VARs to other systems for reading. So that I need to check with the systems team I would think yes, that you can read them, but I'm pretty sure we don't want you to inject anything, because basically it's all part of the career progression system. So we don't want that to be open to people who may use that.
Confusing, basically. Like people have to buy and fix their plane, right, with the currency in the career and all that stuff. So in Korea, it's going to be detrimental to have both.
One interesting thing is that you can disable the wear and tear features, each particular features. If you want to have a perfect functioning braking system at all times, you can disable it.
Maybe not in Korea.
But in free flight.
Yeah, in free flight, yes, probably. Okay. Maybe this is something that should be open in free flight. I don't know. I need to talk to the systems.
We talked about it before, but yeah, we'll get back to you on this one, Robert.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So will the new gameplay features be exposed via the SDK so that it can be used in free flight, like placing fires, sling loading, banner towing, etc.?
Unfortunately, at launch, no, we won't allow for exposing gameplay features like that. But that's something that we can add to the wish list and come back later. But no, it's not planned yet.
It's very tied to the carrier mission.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's actually tied to missions So career missions. And so in Free Flight is a mission actually for the sim, for those who don't know. It's a kind of mission. And in this kind of mission, we don't allow for placing fires in Free Flight. Seems a bit strange to me. But yes, for now, that's not something we have planned yet.
Okay. Will more VARs be passed across multiplayer doors, even specific LVARs?
That's an interesting topic. I think we have made progress on this. I don't want to
oversell the feature.
But I mean, on Flight Sim 2020, this was already a subject. We had very limited list of sim bars we could use to share information on multiplayer. I think we have worked on this, but that's, I think, something we need to come back on dev support probably.
Okay, no problem. All right, we have some questions around helicopters. Will there be more parameters available for tail rotors?
So this one is funny because so we've had lots of questions on helicopters in the 50 questions you sent us, maybe by the same person, I don't know, I haven't checked. Anyway, we went to Seb asking, where are we? Do we have that kind of thing? Because he's the one really knowing everything. Even if we document what he's doing and everything, we don't know by heart everything he's doing. So he said, well, that's something I have on my to-do list. I'm trying to do it, this week, and it will be ready for Dev Alpha. So basically, I think he said that for
the first three questions.
Okay.
So the first three questions, basically, he's planning to work on them this week or the next week, basically. So it should be ready for use when Dev Alpha comes out. However, for the fourth question, will there be some kind of differentiation between different types of rotor systems, such as rigid, semi-rigid, or fully articulated? The answer is no for now, simply because we don't know enough on this topic, and we need to document ourselves and see how that works and see if we manage to simulate that properly. So it's a no for now, but it looks like it's an interesting topic.
Okay.
Well, it is an interesting topic, but I mean, internally we think it would be worth looking into it.
Cool. One question about the career activities. Will there be a way to see in the marketplace which third-party aircraft are compatible for which career activities?
Short answer is yes. We want to make it obvious in the marketplace which plane can be used for which activity, and we want the users to be able to filter their content if they want to look specifically for firefighting aircraft, stuff like that. So yes, it will be pretty obvious.
There's a question I think we need to answer, Jayne. Like it actually was higher in the chat that people said, hey, wait, only things in the planes in the marketplace can participate in the career. Why? So can you guys explain why?
Do you want me to explain? Okay. So basically, as we said, the career mode is really sim mode, game mode. Basically, there's progression. We want people to use aircraft that allow them to make progress in the career. You've probably seen the GP report. So there are certifications. There are lots of things, and we really want that when people use a plane that we haven't created or first parties haven't created for the career, we want to make sure it doesn't break the career progression. How do we do that? We actually, when a package is sent for ingestion, we analyze it and we say, okay, so you respect all the constraints that are set in the documentation that I've told you before we are going to explain. Okay, so you're compatible with this mission, you're compatible with this mission. And the only way we can do that, and the career service that is an online service that is used for the career progression, the only way this service can ensure this is true is by having the plane ingested through our pipeline. So we cannot just let any add-on in community claim that it's compatible with the career, that it follows all of our guidelines, and we cannot ensure this way that it really does what it says. So the only way for us to be sure is really to go through the ingestion pipeline so that we can write actually on the marketplace as well, yes, this plane is compatible with this activity and this other activity.
I want to put the emphasis, community aircraft are still usable in other game modes, and we don't limit the access. It's just career is a tricky system.
So Copper knew your question there. Will be finally freeware content available via marketplace, especially due to the career mode compatibility. So we're working on this. I think there was really good news recently on this. because we're obviously looking who's playing what planes and how many and all that, and it's clear that some freeware planes are super heavily used. So we think we have a solution. Probably give me 2 weeks to get this run down to the ground, but I think so. I think the answer is good.
Exciting. Okay. All right, let's get to our next section, all about airports and sceneries.
And it's Sylvain again.
All right.
Can we ask this one before we move on? Because this is a good question. So if I buy a third-party plane outside the marketplace that is also sold in the marketplace and works for Korea, could I use that or no?
That's that we need to test it basically. At this point, it's not entirely sure.
As long as it's the same package, right? Because it has to have specific attributes.
Yeah, the plan was for the answer to be yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But,
and so we just need to ensure. So basically, the intention is yes. Now we haven't tested that properly yet. That's why we're a bit yes.
Yeah.
But the intention is that yes, it works.
I think it also depends on encryption for.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's for a follow-up meeting.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we need to get going with you guys, get you the SDK, and get feedback. That's the next step. That's part. This is a primer to that, and then we have another meeting.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about airport and sceneries then. The first big feature that we wanted to talk about is the sim prop containers. So it's essentially a container that you can place, a container object that you can place in through the scenery editor, and it can contain library objects and sim objects. It's the equivalent of a prefab in other software. There are many advantages to this design. First, you can manipulate your SimProp container as a single entity. So if you have a very complex object where there are plenty of sim object and sub library objects, you can move all of it at once. Also, of course, it can be shared. We have SimProp container libraries. So it means you can share SimProp containers across multiple projects. You can share them with other users, and you'll have access to a library of SimProp containers coming from Flight Sim 2024. We have an example below that demonstrates how it works. It's in a certain way similar to what we do with modular sim object. There's not the modular hierarchy, but the principle and the advantages are the same. You'll have a very simple object. So here we can see the building on the right. It's really raw and really simple. And then you'll have plenty of smaller objects that you can use to decorate it, like, I don't know, AC units, doors, and ventilation shafts. And all similar to the modular sim object, all of these objects will have their own lot selection. So this means you can have very, very detailed buildings and objects when the camera is close, and simplify your object as the camera moves away. That's a thing we've introduced. I think the reason for it was the modeling of oil rigs, because it's the helicopters are landing on those oil rigs, so we need a lot of details, and this was very heavy on the system. So that's how we achieved to create such detailed oil rigs that you saw in our trailers, and I think it will be a big improvement compared to Flight Sim 2020. Biomes and geomes, we've talked about it a little bit in the presentation. So that's, again, something that you saw in the trailers. I think it's something that contributes a lot to the visual quality of Flight Sim 2024. We have a completely new system for biomes and geomes. And you will no longer be able to create your own biomes, because right now it's not possible. It's too complicated. However, we really wanted scenery creators to have their hand on their system and be able to decide when they want to exclude a particular biome in a place of their scenery, or if they want to spawn and select a very specific biome that they want in a specific area. So in a similar way to what the Polygon was doing in Flight Sim 2020, where you could select biomes and vegetation and adjust every single parameters for density, the scale. We have a similar system in Flight Sim 2024. And we also introduced the ability to place trees individually, trees that are now 3D trees. So I think this is really, this will be useful to go really far into the details. And yeah, another feature that contributes a lot to the visual fidelity of airports is the system of airport archetypes. So we've introduced a lot of what we call archetypes, which are basically patches that you can see on the runway, or tire marks, or cracks in the runway, or when the runway is grooved, you can see the grooving. And here again, we wanted airport creators to have their hands on their system. So the system is we have set a lot of presets. Like if it's a local airport or if it's an international airport, it's not going to be the same presets. The system is controlled at the airport level, so you will have properties in the airport object that you will be able to tweak. And so you can select your own presets if this is good enough for you, or you can go all the way and tweak each individual archetype. You can adjust its density, its opacity. You can change the material that is used for rendering. And yeah, I think that's it.
Okay. We'll go into your questions now from chat and from our forum here. Will the drone camera issue with the collision material be addressed in 2024?
Yes, it's been addressed. So just to get back to this issue, I can't remember when it appeared. I think it was when we released the Maverick add-ons.
Yes.
We fixed something which had the unfortunate side effect of preventing the drone camera to go into the airport buildings. So this has been fixed. Right now in Flight Sim 2024, the drone camera can go back to the... Basically, it's not affected by the collision material anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Chat question, can grass density now be modified separately from the materials color? Also, can we get more fine-tuning for rotation controls for aprons?
I haven't understood the beginning.
The grass. Whether
the color?
Can adjust, yeah,
can grass density be modified?
I have no idea if you can change the grass color.
Independently from the IRLs, yeah. I don't know. That's something we would need to get back.
Okay. Another chat question. Is it possible to repair issues in water where water doesn't load in properly?
I think we've had issues with that have been fixed. Is it the exact issue that the person is reporting? I cannot tell. But we've had issues during the development of Flight Sim 2024, and there have been fixes. I can't ensure that it's really the one you're referring to.
Okay. For projected meshes, will it be possible to use our own detail maps?
So this will actually no longer be necessary. One of the things we've not talked about, but is, I think, very important, is that I think this is visible with the biomes and the 3D ground. The terrain rendering system goes way further than before in the details, and this applies to all the airport objects that are baked into the terrain textures. It's so precise now that you cannot even see the aliasing in the. It's almost like it's vector objects. It's quite impressive. Mm-hmm. And the side effects is that you usually use the tail maps to add some high frequency details on a low resolution texture. This is no longer really required because the resolution is so high that that's not needed. So now they're disabled by default, and I think you can probably even bake your details into the textures directly.
Cool. And will you be able to properly simulate flooded areas with the new water model in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024?
Unfortunately, no, we don't. We didn't develop anything for floods. There are a lot of new cool environment hazards and weather-related events, but not flooded areas.
Okay. Will terraforming be more precise with the new ground model, or will it have the same method as it does in 2020?
I think that this is the issues
team?
regarding
teams,
and
okay.
It's the same.
Because this is a question we received in advance, so we tried to get the information. It looks like this is still assigned to be done at some point, but it's not done yet. So right now, no, it's not. If you have a thin terrain and you try to use terraforming, you will keep the resolution of the thin network. So you won't get the much higher resolution that you would like that was used before. So this is in the pipe, but I don't think it will be ready for launch.
Okay. Will there be an easier way in 2024 to create custom POIs?
Actually, I was amused by this one because I said, well, I don't think we've changed anything in the way you create custom POIs. And so I was just wondering, what do you find difficult in doing them, and what can we do to help, basically?
It's a good question. I mean, we obviously make hundreds of these things all the time. So I think the thing that's really cool is the tree placement, the individual tree placement thing. That helps tons with landscaping.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I agree with Eric. How is it hard?
Okay.
Yeah, so feel free for the person who sent this question, feel free to open a topic on dev support and explain us. I guess it's because we don't know basically what's preventing you from progressing the way you want. So just let us know and we'll see what we can do.
Okay. Will there be any access for water masking?
Obviously, we have a tool for water masking, but it's used internally or for first parties. And I don't think we plan to open that.
Nope.
Okay. Will you support double-sided taxiway signs?
It was interesting, this one, because the question was much longer, explaining how the person is actually doing it these days. And so I've talked to the persons who are in charge of taxiway signs and the editor and everything. And basically he told me, well, we don't have that. It's not planned for now. It may be in the future. It's just something we never really thought about adding, I believe. He told me, so this one is not planned, and there are other improvements that are already planned. So just saying, there are other improvements that will come before we can tackle this one, if we ever tackle it, if it goes into a development plan. But so right now, no, that we don't support it, and there was no plan to do it until we saw this question. So we'll see in the future if this is something we'd like to add.
I think for now, people are just putting signs back to back, and this is the perfect way of doing it so far.
That's what the person told us. That's the proper way to do it now.
Yeah. And is the default scenery and sim object names going to stay the same?
I think in sceneries, we don't really refer to objects through their names, but rather through their GUIDs, the GUIDs. And sim objects are referred to by their title or name, if you want. What I wanted to say is that basically, if we're talking about using 2020 package in 2024, and this 2020 package references objects that come from another library, basically, it will probably reference objects that are from 2020. So since we have backwards compatibility, if you have the package that contains the object that is referenced, then it will work. But it means that the same object between 2020 and 2024 is likely to have a different GUID, just to allow for 2020 packages to be supported. Same goes for sim objects. Titles have changed. The DA62 title in 2024, and well, it's got several variations, but the title is different from that in 2020. In a sense, it's good because it means that you can have both. You could have both sim objects in the sim. But I guess the question came from someone who's making software that spawns sim objects. So of course he was probably interested to know if he will have to redo all of his name tables, I guess. So that's likely.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, we have our next section, other SDK and dev mode improvements. Talk about.
That would be for me then.
Okay.
So WebAssembly or WASM, for those who are familiar with it. I've seen the question already in the chat, and I think I've seen it in dev support as well. So in 2020, WASM modules used to run on the main thread. So if they were doing a lot of things, that could make the game slow down a bit. So what we've decided now is that we run these modules on their own thread. Be careful. I'm not saying WASM is multi-threaded yet. That's still something we want to achieve, but we're having a hard time doing it. So prior to attaining this goal, what we've done is we've moved the execution of those WASM modules on another thread rather than the main thread. So that's done now. Of course, it means that at some point we need to synchronize the thread and the main thread because we need to know what the WASM modules have done before proceeding with the simulation. But anyway, we can see gains in execution doing that. So that's interesting. There are also new types of WASM modules. One of them is, so they are not revolutions, I want to say, but for instance, we have the system modules, which will be used, if you want to, which will be used by people who are making aircraft and who up to now had to create a fake gauge just to have their systems simulated. So we very often, if you look at the panel.cfg, you'll see that there's a gauge that is mapped to a texture of 1 pixel wide, 1 pixel high, which is never rendered actually. And that is just called systems. And that is running lots of systems that other gauges take the results of to display things. So right now you have a more proper way to do it. You can declare a system module in your aircraft. Similarly, we've seen that some airport packages were using a standalone module. And we thought, well, okay, it's an airport package. We don't know what the standalone module does because obviously it's already in WASM or it's already precompiled, and we are not reverse engineering what you're doing, guys. So basically, we don't know what it does, but we think that if it's part of an airport package, it must mean that it's related to the airport. So it's probably doing things just for the airport. And so if we have 100 packages, airport packages installed, each one with its own standalone module, always in memory, always doing things, then there might be a performance issue. So what we decided to implement or to offer you is airport modules. So it's basically you approach an airport, the module is loaded and is initialized and run, and you get away from the airport, then the module is unloaded. So maybe there will be questions on what the distance is to load, unload, and stuff like this. Maybe we should make it settable. But yeah, so that's the idea. Another thing we wanted to offer, since now we run on a separate thread than the main thread, and also because we use streaming, we will require, well, not require, but we'll need actually most of the modules to use async file IO. So why do we do that? We've said in the beginning that packages are streamed. A lot of aircraft packages that use WASM come with a data folder that has lots of files in there. And those files can be init files or big text files, navigation data. I've seen lots of things like this. The thing is that if we stream your content, we'll stream your CFGs and everything that is needed to launch the aircraft. And then comes the WASM module. But then since the sim itself doesn't request the data folder, it's not streamed. But as soon as your module requests a file in the data folder, we need to stream it, which introduces lag, which it can take time because we stream and we put in what we call a rolling cache. It's not exactly the same than you had before on 2020, but basically we cache the stuff we stream. And so you can have to wait for a bit of time before the file actually arrives and your WASM module can process it. So we can't let your WASM module freeze the main thread, not because it runs on it, but because it needs to be synced with it. So basically, we'll advise everyone to use a new API, which allows you to do async file IO, which most developers here will know anyway. It's not rocket science. It's just coming to WASM. And we'll have another WASM API, which will allow you to more easily access SimVars, because the view is to deprecate in the future the old panels API, well, the kind of register vars and stuff like this. Basically, the other reason for that is that we've changed quite extensively what SimVars can do, and you have SimVars that are indexed and stuff like this, and the panels API was not fitted anymore for that kind of syntax. So we thought having a clean new API would be easier. So when I say deprecated, it will still work for now, don't worry, it won't break anything, but we offer a new API to access SimVars. That's the idea. This one is a funny slide. The idea is courtesy of the flying raccoon.
I'm going to monitor the chat to see how crazy people are about this.
Yes, so please be crazy or he will be disappointed. So basically what we wanted to tell you is that our technical writer, Mark, has made a lot of work trying to improve the documentation we provide. So you'll probably recognize the theme. It's similar to what we provide with 2020, although now I can't remember if the dark and light theme was already available in 2020. That's not important. Yeah, it was. Okay. Then anyway, so we have a lot more content, and guess what? If you look at this slide, you have a page that explains you how to make working wipers. So yes, I'm just looking at the chat. So yeah, so just a joke on, not a joke. It's true, but I mean, we found it amusing to present the documentation with the page on long-standing feature.
We forgot to talk about it at that double preview event.
So here it is. Now we have wipers. Okay, other improvements, input profiles, you've heard about it. I think it is now possible to create device-specific profiles, so that will be useful to device manufacturers as well as people who are doing their own cockpits. I won't go into the details. It's rather complex, I must say, but it works and it's powerful. And then you've got aircraft-specific profiles where you can map. First, you can create your own actions for your aircraft, and then you can map them to specific keys or action, device actions, basically. So everything will be explained in the documentation. I still find it rather complex, but it's powerful.
We need to streamline it a bit, but that's what Dev Alpha is for.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Be prepared. This one still needs ironing. Anyway, compiled behaviors. I've mentioned model behaviors before when talking about VFS locking and stuff like this. So this is related to model behaviors. What the cockpit team has decided to propose and offer is that now when you reference model behaviors, in 2020, what you do, you just say, hey, my behavior is referencing this template here in the VFS. What we do now for the sake of performance is that when you build your package, the templates you're actually referencing is compiled into your own package. This has several implications. So the first one is better performance because the behavior is compiled. When we read it later on, we don't have to look into the VFS. We don't have to parse it again because it's compiled in a certain way. The other implication is that it means you're not dependent, and it's a blessing and a curse, I don't know, but you're not dependent anymore on the template you've been referencing. So what that means is that if you reference the broken template, or not broken, but a template in a certain state, and then we or the template maker provide a better version later on, you won't automatically benefit from it because you've used the compiled behavior. You've just taken the snapshot of the behavior at the time you built your package, you've put that in your package, and you're stuck with it until you really update your package. That may not be a problem. Most of the time, it won't be a problem, but you need to know that, basically. So better performance, but you're locked with the version that you used to compile. And just to make sure everyone understands me, this is advised, but it's not mandatory. You don't have to use compiled behaviors. You can still use the old method. Another thing, exporters. I've seen a lot of people asking for support for 3ds Max 2025. Can't remember if it was in the forum or dev support again. 2025, we are not supporting it right now simply by lack of time. We have the sim to finish. We have lots of things to finish. We have the dev alpha coming. Oh, yeah, you'll talk about it later. Yeah. Anyway, so yes, so in the studio, we still use 2022. So obviously all the tools work fine with it, at least when they're tested with it. But in principle, our tools should work with any version. So with 2023 and 2024, we will provide 2025 as soon as we have time for that. Regarding Blender, 3.6 LTS is supported, and our tech cart, Yasmin, has made a lot of effort lately to make sure this would work, and she added a lot of things that were missing in the Blender add-on and that were in the 3ds Max. So we're trying to have kind of feature parity between the two. 4.2 LTS, she'd like to make it available for launch. She's not sure about it, so let's say it will be after launch.
Okay, great. Lots of great questions coming in.
Yeah.
First one, we'll take from the slide. Jorg has said we don't get an easy mission editor from launch, but can we expect to see one within 6 months or so?
We would all love to, but that's mission is a tricky topic. It's
we all want to do it. It's just
it's a big effort that we need to plan.
Yeah, that's it. But yeah, we all want to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any changes to the materials created in 3ds or Blender? Is there any new features?
Yes, actually there are quite a few new materials. The wipers is one of them, typically. It works in both 3ds Max and Blender plugin. It's actually, I've tested it myself and it's quite easy to create. So it's a good point. I don't have the extensive list of new materials. I can think of a clear coat paint, for example. We have a better simulation of paint. So this is the kind of new materials we have. I think when the documentation will be public, it will be you will have the full list, basically.
Yeah, awesome. Will we be able to edit roads and road traffic so that we can make more accurate local traffic in our sceneries?
So this one, so we talked to the person or the persons working on the scenery editor and said, well, can we do that? And he said, well, no, because you can extrude roads, so you can create an exclusion rectangle that removes the roads we have. And he said, then you can create a new road with a fake runway material or asphalt material. Basically, it's a fake road. Visually, you can remove the roads we have and create some more, but that doesn't answer the question, which is, can I tweak the local traffic? And right now, we have nothing about that, basically.
Okay. Chat question. Are there any callouts that livery devs might need to know? For example, is dynamic updating from community folder content in Sim possible now?
From community. So I'm not sure I got the question. Is it you want to create or alter an existing livery from the community folder or create a new one from the community folder?
We'll have the one that asked the question kind of clarify. While they do that, one more chat question. Eric, what happens if I created 2 WASM modules for one aircraft? Will each one run on separate threads, sequential or simultaneously?
There is only one thread that runs all the WASM modules in sequence. So basically, instead of that's what we did before on the main thread. We were running module 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, instead of doing it on the main thread, we do it on a separate thread, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But the main thread is doing other things at the same time. So we are not slowing it down anymore. We were thinking at some point, and maybe we'll do it. As you know, it's been said many times since we are presenting Flight Sim 2024. We have worked a lot on multi-threading and occupying your CPUs as much as we can. Which brings me to another thing, but I'll finish that before. Basically, we could use more than one other thread to run the WASM modules. So we could have one aircraft running his modules on one thread and another thread, but our threads are already quite busy. So we are not doing it right now. We'll see in the future if that's something we should do. Maybe we will.
I think it will be interesting to know what kind of performance gain people get from the improvement we are introducing with Flight Sim 2024.
Right. Okay. Is there going to be more SimConnect API improvements compared to the 2020 SDK?
There are some new. Basically, there's no revolution at this stage. Usually, the revolution or the additions in SimConnect come when we expose new things, either from gameplay or from things like that. But these days, we're exposing a lot of internal things, new systems that are actually part of the CFGs and the aircraft, or new features that are directly in the scenery, the airports. We don't have much things to change on Sim. We haven't changed much things on SimConnect. I think Maxime told us he had modified a few functions, fixed a few of them. There's nothing big. There are probably adjustments. I don't have the list on top of my head. I'm sorry. I should have drafted it. There are changes, but there's no revolution at all.
I think the big part is that a lot of the underlying systems that you can access through the SimConnect API have changed themselves. So just ensuring that the API works as expected is a big is a big task.
Yeah.
And I think we want to do that first.
Okay. And how can we programmatically determine the location of the community folder in 2024?
So we kept this one for the presentation because I think it was the first Flight Sim 2024 question asked on dev support.
Okay.
Just after the sim was announced or revealed, and I think it was the first, and I couldn't reply. So don't worry, when Dev Alpha comes out and the SDK comes out and the samples comes out, you'll have a new sample for the package installer. That's where we give the little key that allows you to detect where the community folder is. So basically, it will be the same idea. We'll look into the user cfg.opt. We find the path by looking into a specific registry key or whatever. So you'll have everything. I don't have the code name on top of my head. It's a string like that with.
Okay. All right. The clarifying question: in dev mode, will the new SDK allow for community folder content to be reloaded in sim rather than needing to restart?
Well, when this happens, it's a bug. Basically, you shouldn't have to restart. That's the first point. So when this happens, and you build a package in the dev mode, it depends what you say. Actually, if you add it to community,
they add it while we're in game. It's something we have investigated. It's in progress. It's something we want, but it's not.
Sometimes you need to do this because the package you are editing live.
I think they're not talking about editing. That's my mistake. They're just saying the game is running. I take a new community package, just put it in community.
Yeah.
How can I get it in the sim without reloading the sim? That's different to what I thought.
Yeah. And to this, my answer is it's something we're working in progress, but it creates issue because if, for instance, you're already in your content manager and something is added live, then you need to prevent. Anyway, it's something we're working on and we haven't figured the full solution yet, but we're trying to implement it. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Will there be better support for making network requests from WASM modules? Will making raw TCP connections be supported?
Yes, I remember this one. So the original question even mentioned the fact that we only have 3 HTTP requests allowed at the same time for all the modules. We've kept this limit for now because on the HTTP side, the SIM is already pretty heavy. So we haven't opened more to just WASM modules. So for now, it's the same. And you will not be allowed to make raw TCP connections. I think, in the question, they also said sometimes it fails and we don't have much detail on. What I thought is that basically you receive an HTTP response code, which should give you the kind of error code you have, 404, 503, whatever. And I understand you may need more, but just please take it on dev support, explain us exactly what's missing for you when maybe you need more info, maybe you need more than just the response code. Maybe there's an additional extra information you'd want to have. Please feel free to tell us. But right now, just to answer the question, no, you cannot make more network requests. When we say there are 3 requests at the same time, it's just that if lots of modules send a lot of requests, they're just queued, and then they're executed when one of the 3 slots is free.
Okay. And are there any plans for a more lightweight development environment compared to 2020?
So at first, I misunderstood the question, but Sylvain explained. I thought basically the idea was that we have a dev mode outside of the sim, which has been discussed internally as well, if you want to know. The only thing is that as soon as you have dev mode outside, even if it's not the question, I'm just explaining that. Even if it's not, if you have dev mode basically outside of the sim, at some point you create an aircraft, you want it to fly in the world, so you need the world. And then you have someone doing a scenery, so he needs the scenery, he needs the world. So basically it's tricky to take that out. That being said, boot time is slowed down when you have a lot of packages. So my first idea when talking about that to Sylvain, I said, hey, we could have a flag when we launch Flight Sim and we say no community. Then he told me, no community, not a good idea because people may need what they have in their community. So I said, well, we could have a minimal, any option that just say, for instance, let's say you specify that you want to boot the game and you only have 1 aircraft rather than the 20, 50, 80 that you may have bought. And this makes, to be honest, this makes booting a lot faster. The less package you have, the faster the booting is. So this is not something we have right now. but since we've heard about it, we thought it would be a really good idea. Not saying it will be available for Dev Alpha, but it could be not too much later on.
Okay. And camera API, is it coming?
Me again? Okay. Jorg, well, yeah, basically.
So everybody knows about Jay's plan. We talked about this a lot. We actually sent a document to Edson. I don't know when this was, Edson. I know you're on the chat months and months and months ago. There was some back and forth. We just chatted right before the stream started that we need to relook. I mean, we have a plan of what's going to be exposed. I don't think it's that everything that you guys were talking about, but we'll get back to you. Like, the goal is to make your stuff work within reason. So let's just see and get the conversation going again.
Yeah.
Okay. Has the UI system been totally rewritten and Coherent GT been replaced, or is it an evolutionary development on top of the 2020 UI framework?
So the UI system has been largely rewritten. Coherent GT has been improved, not replaced. So it's an evolutionary development on top of the 2020 UI framework, I'd say. But yeah, since basically most of the interface has been rewritten, maybe not the systems behind, although we now have an internal UI editor that allows us to create our UI in a much easier way than before. Don't ask, it's not exposed. It's we don't distribute it. It's not in the dev mode. It's really a separate tool for once. But yeah, so yes, it's an evolution. It's still based on Coherent, much improved version of Coherent. And the UI has been largely rewritten. So as I said in the beginning, if you used to create packages that altered this, it's likely they won't work anymore.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, let's move on to the SDK rollout plan.
The best part.
Da, 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 da. Drum roll.
All right, so it's my pleasure to announce that, as you understood, there will be a Dev Alpha, and it will be accessible before the launch of Flight Sim 2024. It will be accessible on October 21st to all the marketplace registered partners. In this build, you'll have access to the whole dev mode, to the documentation, to the SDK, the samples, the plugins, etc. You'll be able there to test your sceneries, your aircraft in free flight. We're providing 2 aircraft samples that you can fully look at and try to use to understand our technologies, which are the Diamond DA62 and the Gimbal Cabri G2. Documentation will be available online for everyone to see. You'll be able to download the SDK from the build. And also, big news, dev support will have an open 2024 section where you'll be able to report your issues, discuss your problematics, and request feature, and maybe. So yeah, it's a big news because it's finally coming. We're so happy that we can do that before the full release of the game. Hopefully you'll have a lot of fun with all the new tools we presented, and there's even more to come that we didn't have the time to cover. So yeah, I hope this is a big news for everyone.
If I can add something on dev support, you've seen all the content, all the new features that we've introduced. So we've not been very available on the dev support platform for the usual support and follow up on your problems and questions you have on the Flight Sim 2020 dev mode and SDK. I can speak for the team, so Boris and Alexandre, solving issues on dev support and helping you solve an issue is, I think, one of the most rewarding stuff that we can do in my team. So we are really looking forward to I hope more presence on 21st, and we are really looking forward to provide support on this new platform and all these new features.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say I saw some questions. So basically we have something currently called tools only builds that we have been sending around to our first party partners that are helping make planes, or Gaia that makes a lot of the environments. So that was basically the hardening phase for this. That's going to get rolled over into this dev alpha. Somebody says, I hope the documentation is perfect or something. I don't think it's perfect. No. We get lots of feedback. We need your feedback. So just know this is, it is. You see the team here, like everybody's really doing an awesome job, but it takes the interaction with you guys. So just know that. And then to answer these questions here, you need to purchase a copy. No, this is a segment that we're making available to developers. So that means you don't own the sim, but you can work in the dev mode basically. The pushing of ingestion, we're going to have a dedicated meeting about marketplace, because that's how this will go in 2 weeks. So you will get this on October 21st. I think that stream is on October 30th. So that's when we're going to answer this. And then third parties unique access for Dev Alpha. No, it's not per team. It's per team member. So we're going to just need your gamer tag.
Yeah, and remember the in Dev Alpha there is alpha. So hopefully
Not beta.
you're aware that everything will not be perfect, but we're so thrilled to be able to give you our tools very soon. So
something we haven't talked about, I think, is that part of the thing that impressed us with Flight Sim 2020 is that we give you a feature and you are able to make use out of it that we never anticipated. So there are a lot of features or things that you used to do on Flight Sim 2020 that we need to work on, I think. The SimConnect application are a good example of the application managing traffic and all of this. So that's what the Dev Alpha is for, ensuring that everything is as good as we hope it is.
Yeah, Rahul, I don't want to keep you from buying the sim, but no, you don't have to buy it to get into the Dev Alpha. Anyways, it's not related, those two things. I just want to say this one more time. I've said it for like the last 8 months now. It's for the community, with the community, and you guys are the community. So just know we are grateful for the partnership. We will listen carefully to all the feedback. Use dev support, please. The team is there looking at it all the time, and let's make this awesome. And this doesn't end November 19th. It starts right now and it goes for years, right? So let's make this better. And features that were requested and things that people want, as always, we're going to have our feedback snapshot. We're going to prioritize, and it's going to be just like what we did the last 4 years into the future. So thank you for the partnership.
Jorg, do you have any updates on the stream schedule coming up?
So we're gonna look. So basically, what happens is Jayne sends out the chat so we can actually read it, because it's impossible to read it all. Read it offline. If there's enough open topics, then there is a pretty good chance that we'll make another SDK stream next week to pick up on topics that were just not properly covered. There's so many questions open that we just need another session. We'll let you know the moment Jayne sends us out. The 4 of us are going to read this, go pour over it, and then we'll make an announcement as soon as we can. But there's a pretty good, there's definitely openness to do it next week, I would say, from the team.
Awesome.
We'll be there.
Yes, Hugo, Eric, Sylvain,
Hugo,
thank you so much.
Acting appearance. It wasn't so bad, Hugo, was it? Come on now.
No, it was fun. It was
fun.
It is fun. It is fun.
Thank you three anyway for coming on today, and possibly see you next week if we do another one. And Jorg, as always, for being here and supporting and answering questions as well. Chat, thank you so much for all your questions. We will read through it, like Jorg said, and see if we need to do another one. I know there's plenty more questions to be answered. But until then, we will see you soon. Happy flying, and we hope you got some answers that you were looking for in today's stream. So take care. We'll see you later. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. See you, everyone.